Welcome to my kitchen. We have butternut squash soup on the menu today. Dinner at our house is usually either a soup or a salad, depending on the weather, and today we're having butternut squash soup. You know, I used to think that soup, in order to be really good, had to be simmered for hours. But that's not true. You can make soup that's really good and make this really fast. This soup will take about 10 to 15 minutes depending on how fast your stove can bring the pot to a boil. This soup is a staple of our meal rotation. We have it every week, and I hope that it'll become a part of yours too. And before I forget, I'd just like to remind you that I have an ebook, 5 healthy salad dressings, plant-based and oil-free. You'll find a link in the description box where you can download it for free. So please check it out. Now let's get cooking. To make this soup, you'll need a cup and a half of frozen butternut squash. You can buy it frozen. You don't have to bother baking a squash yourself. What I happen to bake this and freeze it, I do that when I do a lot of batch cooking. It's easy enough to just throw the squash in the oven. And I have the instructions for that in the description box below. If you want to go that route, you can see I have this, I froze this a year ago in 520. And I think I was getting Misfits boxes at that point, and they were sending me an awful lot of squash. And so I think that's why I have a lot of squash in my freezer. But, you know, you can just buy it frozen. You'll need 3/4 of a cup of white beans of some kind. Butter beans work well. These are great northern, cannellini, navy beans, whatever. Just 3/4 of a cup of white beans. Oh, and by the way, this soup is for 2 people. A rib of celery, half of a medium onion, a small potato. This is a red russet. You can use any kind of potato you want, really. Yukon Gold would work well too. This just happens to be what I have. And a cup of greens. This is arugula. You want to use some kind of green that's going to be good wilted, but not cooked, because the soup is pureed. If you put the greens into the soup and cook it and then puree it, it's going to get a very muddy color because the green is going to mix with the orange and it'll get mud. You'll get mud. I mean, it'll taste fine, but it's just not going to look very pleasant. So we're going to chop the greens and put them in at the last minute. So for spices, you'll need the Savory Spice mix that I will put the recipe in the description box below. I have it on my shelf and my spice rack, and I use it all the time for a lot of different things. And a bay leaf. Got my pot here, and I'm going to chop up the celery and the onion and the potato. So I've chopped up all my vegetables and literally just throw them in the pan. I've got my I got my potatoes and celery and onion chopped up. And the nice thing is, because you're pureeing this soup, you don't have to worry about getting anything in bite-sized chunks. Just remember, the smaller the chunks of potato, the faster the soup will cook. So, and I'm going to put my bay leaf in. Next, I'm putting in my squash and my beans. The only thing that I'm holding out on is the greens, because they're going in last. Other thing that I forgot to mention is miso. You can either use salt, but I prefer to use a little bit of miso. This is a yellow miso. And it's about a tablespoon. Now my savory spice mix, about a tablespoon of that also, maybe a little bit more, generous tablespoon. Okay, now soup broth. This is my homemade, and let's see, is it just a little bit more? 6 cups. I'm going to put it on the stove and let it cook just until the potatoes are done. So it'll probably take longer to come to a boil than it will for the potatoes to actually cook. No more than 15 minutes total. Potatoes will probably cook in about 6 or 7. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, my soup is cooked. It boiled for about 7 minutes, just until the potatoes are soft, and I've checked the potatoes and they're nice and soft, so everything's ready to go. Going to get my hand blender. And we have a nice creamy, well, I wouldn't call it creamy, but a nice thick squash soup. And what I did while the soup was cooking is I chopped up some arugula, and I'm just going to put that in now. And it'll just wilt, doesn't need to cook. And that'll add some greens to your dinner. And so here it is, a lovely, fast soup that you can make when you don't have time or don't really feel like cooking. Just have the ingredients on hand and throw it together in 15 minutes and you've got dinner. I hope you'll give this a try. If you think you will, give this video a thumbs up. And while you're at it, subscribe to my channel. If you click on the bell, you'll get a notification every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.